So, welcome everybody to the Unreasonable Swingers episode here with Pat Hughes over in the UK. And since he is in the UK, we'll just remind him that if he's not comfortable with being recorded, that now would be a good time to drop off the call, since the UK and their GDPR likes to make sure that people are aware when their images and their voices may be shared with other folks across the internet. The vice presidential debate.
Oh, okay.
How did it play over in the UK? I'm assuming that you watched it.
Well, I did, and now you're going to laugh at this. One, I was interested in something that seemed weird to me. It seems that now, this is just my take. Both of the people that were there, it was more of a real debate than anything that I watched with Trump and Biden, which was like they were respectful, but also I noticed a pattern that was interesting. When Kamala Harris wanted to make a comment on something and was going to go over, she stayed within the time limit, meaning as a prosecutor, she was trained to stay within, I'll call it concise and to the point, where Mike Pence would go on these rambles and wouldn't answer the question. He would be asked a question and he would answer another question. And it was not once, it was multiple times over the evening. So it's essentially, he wanted to talk about something that happened previous and they wouldn't let him go on in the time. So he used the time from a subsequent question to basically answer things that he wanted to say on the previous things, but never really answer the one and the question that he was asked at all. And the moderator let him get away with it. And it was the weirdest shit I ever saw in my life. And it was like, okay, so I had a moderator who lost all control, which was obviously Wallace. And then I have this one that lets them get away with almost anything they wanted to do, but they were at least what I would call politically astute enough to stay within the confines of the conversation and act like adults in the room, as opposed to what I saw Trump and Biden do, which was like watching two 6-year-olds fight over a soccer ball.
It's like you don't get a second chance to make a first impression type of thing. And even though people have seen these folks on the campaign trail or seen folks for the past,
they don't get a lot of play.
This is like watching your favorite sports team in the playoffs for the first time when you haven't watched them all season. And so the first thing I picked up on was certainly at least an unwritten rule of public speaking. 2 of the first 10 words that you say out of your mouth to any crowd should be "thank you." All right.
Normally, you're talking about what you do for a living.
And this is what politicians do for a living as well.
Is that's debatable anymore. I would agree with you 20 years ago. I'm not sure that's correct now.
They speak in public, right? And so right out of the gates, did she say thank you? Is it nice to be here? Is it good to talk to the people at home? No. How did Pence start it off? Not only thank you, but also I'm honored to be on the stage with you, Kamala. Right from the very beginning, 2 completely different personas that were portrayed up there. Right. Agree with you on the lack of answering questions with the evasion that happened on both sides. So I think it was Joe Concha on a panel on Fox this morning, of course it was Fox, who was saying how there were a series of questions that were not put to Senator Harris. Yeah, at the very least, Senator. For instance, she wasn't asked one of the interesting questions that I would have liked to have heard about was her funding the bailout fund for the violent criminals from the BLM riots and all that. So when she was talking about how she had participated in the peaceful protests, she funded people that committed arson and maybe committed rapes, assaults, and stuff like that.
Now you're making suppositions with facts, not in evidence. The point is that information.
No. There's evidence of this.
Yep. No, I said that. No. What's been dumped is everything that she gave to that then used the money for whatever they used the money for. Now, again, you're talking about her personally doing it, and that's not what happened.
No, I am not talking about her personally doing it. It's a good thing we're recording because we'll go back and spin it up. Her promoting, if she did not herself donate to this, I would not be surprised, but I am not claiming that at all. She promoted the funding of this bailout fund.
Right.
She tweeted for people to go donate to this.
Right,
She
and that's what I'm
provided the
saying,
link.
which is not the
She
same
provided the link
as
for it.
doing what you said.
And again, I'll go back and rewind. If it doesn't match the words, that's again is the at the very least that's the spirit of her providing aid and abetting violent criminals. So
Okay.
so again, the question wasn't even raised, Patrick, whether you agree with the supposition or not. The question wasn't even on the fringe of being asked. That's so there was a bunch of stuff like that wasn't raised by this friendly moderator.
No, you got to understand. Wait. Two things. One, politically, you got to understand why they wouldn't want to go there against somebody who by their own party. This is Kamala now, who by their own party. Okay, the thing that she's got a black eye with on the left is specific to one function. She was a very, very, very aggressive. Okay. Prosecutor, for almost anywhere, but specifically for California and the districts that she got into before she got the state AG's job.
I know, and so do the black pot smokers from San Francisco know.
The point I'm making to you is they didn't want to go to law and order against her because, no offense, she's got a pretty good law and order background relative to what she did. Whether you agree with her politics or not doesn't matter. She prosecuted
Donald Trump is a racist today, and therefore Kamala Harris is a racist today. It doesn't matter what either of them did 10 years ago. Doesn't matter what either of them did 10 minutes ago. He hasn't denounced white supremacy in the past.
Not whether I agree with the politics. All I said was they didn't want to go there on the record. That's all. Politically speaking, they wanted the conversation to be about something else. That's all the Republicans did. Not the Democrats.
And I think they missed a chance to make it, because again, there was another point of omission that wasn't brought up during the debate last night was anything about Antifa.
Okay, as a rule, not in this election per se, because this one's very unique, but in most, if not all of the last, call it 40 years worth of elections, not 40 elections, the vice presidential, call it either debate or cross of swords, this is like basically your second cousin function, because
I get that. I remember hearing a commentator years and years ago talking about George Bush 43
with Quayle.
Yes, and how
Nevish 101, dude.
What they said was the office of the vice presidency typically demeans the office holder. And what this person said was they said that, and they said in this case with George Bush, it's the office holder who demeans the office of the vice president.
And that is a classic. Okay, observation. The answer is that while Pence has had a forefront position in COVID, if COVID didn't happen, assume it went away and it fell asleep, okay, and would never basically reared its ugly head on the planet, and Trump was running for re-election, number one, this would be a whole new campaign. That's a different story. And the second answer is, other than being a cheerleader for Trump, you wouldn't know he existed. Now, I'm sorry, but that's the news cycle. The average, and not me and you, okay, because we're following the politics. I'm talking about the average voter wouldn't know anything about the man at all.
All right, well, let's hang on a second. There's two quick points on that. So we are again talking to the swingers here, the folks who are centrists, the folks that can actually be convinced and persuaded on policy types of things. Are we the average voter?
The swingers?
Yes.
It's a cross section. You have a bunch of people that make their mind up relative to the facts, and then you have other people that make their mind up at the last minute. How do you qualify those and say they're in the same subset? They're not.
Fair enough. All right. So on again the swinger fronts, do we pay more attention to the vice president candidate than the average person? Because we know full, especially when you're looking at two 70-plus-year-olds.
Yes, in this cycle, because of who's up. Okay, now granted, here's one. If this ticket was Obama, okay, and Biden again. I'm saying if it was out of cycle, okay, and you ran into that, nobody'd be talking age at all. Nothing. The only reason anybody's talking anything at this point is because one of them is close to being an octogenarian. That's the only reason age is even a thing.
And it's not the guy who just beat COVID.
I'm going to reiterate. We don't know. First off, we don't know he beat COVID. Second of all, yes.
All right.
No. He appears to be getting better. And again, I don't believe any of the news cycles that come out because, truthfully, none have been.
You're all right about that with the 48-hour rule. He hasn't even been home from the hospital long enough for the 48-hour rule. So he could still be at Walter Reed for all I know. Well, except for the fact that CNN keeps playing over and over and over again.
Again, this is the propaganda function that we're running into at the moment. And the news cycle feeds into this like a shark frenzy. Actually, no. You know what? Shark frenzy is the wrong idea. This is like watching piranhas feed. You ever watch piranhas feed?
Yes.
One hit happens, then another hit happens, and then it's like.
And closing out the hour here for the conversation. When we're talking about the people who catch the most amount of blame are the ones that are not going to win the election, isn't that then the winning messaging and strategy is not necessarily to tout your own benefits, but to detract from the other side?
All I said was that they basically followed a propagandist function. Both of them did.
But again, isn't that fitting in with the sentiment and doesn't that strategy make sense given what you're seeing as the political psyche?
The political football that's like that, or actually in this case, the ball that's in the air, okay, in the juggling function is they followed the norm of the cycle. So yes, they were basically feeding on our theorem. Okay, they're trying to lay blame. So again, people are going to go out and vote, and the average person goes out to vote against someone, not for someone. Okay, and I go back to the same thing again. I don't think the average Trump voter loves Trump. I think he really hates the other side so much that he'll vote for anything.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, Patrick, because
we're going to find out in a very few short days because the answer.
You are right. You are absolutely right about that. But
and you know it's going to be a cluster. Okay, you just know it because they don't have any mechanisms in place to basically pull off what they're trying to pull off in the time frame allotted. And again, I'm going to reiterate the first, call it 30 elections, Owen, 30. We never knew who the president was the night of election anyway.
All right.
So again, is this some kind of problem? No, it's not a problem. That's the whole point of having the election in November.
And then giving enough time for the horses to get to DC with the ballot boxes, so that the people with horses traveling in to count the ballot boxes would be able to have time to get there.
Well, and again, this is not something that has to be called by the pundits, okay, from exit polling on the night of the election. And we've gotten so used to instantaneous gratification in this country, it's mind-bogglingly stupid, okay? It is beyond dumb, and nobody's given it fair play at all, not the right, not the left. The answer is, who gives a crap whether or not anybody knows who win or didn't win on November 3rd? It doesn't matter. What matters is the veracity of the vote. Is it real? Can you verify it? And if you can't verify it, you put it in a provisional pile and you basically have somebody dissect it. And if that takes a goddamn week, then it takes a week.